right. We want to thank everyone once again for tuning in to this next installment of the EA Koetting Unmasked podcast series. This is episode 2, which we're going to focus on the ages of 8 to 15 years old in EA's life. And we're going to be talking about, some of the events that transpired in his earlier childhood, or we covered his birth up until 7 years in the first episode, but we're going to be discussing 8 to 15 in this one. It's going to be some really, really awesome revelations and some, give you a little bit of insight into his life and the things that have transpired that have really sculpted and molded him and, really promoted him to become the man that he is today. And I'm your host, JD Temple, and joining me, of course, is the Dark Prophet himself, EA Koetting. How you doing, man?
Doing all right. How about yourself, bro?
I'm doing wonderful as always, and it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to dive in. I know when we left off, we were discussing your first foster family, and some of the wild things that were taking place in the home at that point, and kind of wanted to pick up on that.
Yeah. I had a few foster families from basically age 6 months old till I was 4, and so just a couple year window there, but that was an intense couple years because those foster families were not pleasant to say the least. But yeah, I ended up getting adopted into a permanent family and whatnot. But it's interesting that I think maybe just the natural way that we've divided these interviews up, in that 8 was a pretty transformative year. I remember when I was 8 is in the Mormon faith, that's when you get baptized. They call that the age of accountability. So
that's right.
Yeah, that's when according to their doctrine, a child is capable of knowing good from evil. And so at that point you get baptized, and so I did that, and that was it was a lot like a lot of the experiences I had in Christianity and Orthodox religion and the right hand path, is that it was like disappointingly empty. I don't know.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, it gets built up into something that when it finally happens, I was like, I thought this was special. I thought, what happened to the fucking tongues of fire that are going to descend and fill me, and what's the burning in the booze and whatever. What it was clear it was it was a social validation and family validation. The family that I was adopted into, all of a sudden, I had reached another level of maybe acceptance of, you're one of us even more now. And I'll tell you what, that's something that I'm sure in my situation I craved that kind of acceptance. And
right.
But there was that very clear divide of this is. I knew that it wasn't what it was claimed to be. It wasn't this great spiritual thing.
So this was your first experience with organized religion, really, is kind of with this adopted family and really immersing yourself into that religion with them as a whole, as a family.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, as far as anything that I have any conscious memory of, for sure. From everything I remember, religion was not even it was absent until I came to this family, and then my adopted family, my parents, and especially my adopted father, were very extreme with it. Not just because you have what do they call them, Christmas and Easter Christians or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I never knew many Mormons that were, that lived like that. They were kind of all or nothing type of approach to it, it seemed like.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the all, you're looking at not just going for 3 hours on Sunday, but it is. It's 3 hours on Sunday. It's on Wednesday night we'd have youth activities. So
basketball and stuff like that.
Yeah, basketball.
I played a lot of basketball when I was there, and stuff like that. I liked basketball enough to play and whatever, but actually I loved basketball when I was a little kid. It was one of the
I wasn't good at it, but I thought one day maybe I could be.
I sucked. I was tall, but I was terrible, man.
Right? Yeah. No, John Stockton was my hero.
Yeah.
Jazz and whatever.
Yep.
So, but anyways, yeah. No, I remember because I was adopted into this family when I was 4, and so I was going to church and living the lifestyle. Like, it's like on Sundays, you're on lockdown completely. You're not playing with friends. You're not outside.
Yep. No going to stores. No going out to dinner.
Right. Yeah. And with 7 kids, and we had 7 kids in our family. There was the few times we go out to dinner, it was a hassle. I mean, I can imagine how much of a hassle it is for my parents and how expensive that's got to be.
Oh God, yeah, no doubt.
Almost every time we go to a buffet, because that's where you can feed an army of kids, but we were like lined up, military style, like single file line through the door. I mean, just because that's how you have to deal with that many kids. I mean, I've got one child, and she's too much. Being a parent is such a pain in the ass. But I mean, obviously, I've got to say it's rewarding and all of that stuff. But
right.
It's a huge pain in the ass, especially when you got like 6 or 7 kids.
I've got 3, and it's freaking crazy as hell, man. So 7. That would push me over the edge for sure. Ugh.
Yeah. So, anyways, going to church every Sunday, and then reading the scriptures at night. Reading the scriptures was something that it wasn't like negotiable. It was what you did. It was just right after you brush your teeth, you sit down as a family, read from. And when I say the scriptures, you've got the Bible, the Book of Mormon, and then there are a couple other books, the Doctrine and Covenants and the Pearl of Great Price, that are like part of, they're included in the whole like Mormon Bible, Book of Mormon set. Triple combination is what they call it. But we sit and read just straight through, and I'm not sure where we started, not sure where it ended off when I last did that with my family, but just would pound through it, and I'd hear the stories. I mean, it sounded so awesome. You get these prophets that are calling fire down from the heavens, or entire cities that are being turned to fire and brimstone, and people are being turned to pillars of salt because they disobeyed God. And when I want that, I want to know what the formula that these prophets are using is.
Right.
Dude, I think that's how my brain just works. Is like. And sometimes it is a curse, because I'll start looking at things that are probably just random, and I start trying to find out not only how does it work, but what string do I pluck to make it do something different. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that is a curse, because it's almost like an obsessive, like, I don't know. It takes a conscious effort for me to just let things be.
Right. You always got, that nagging in the back of your mind, like, I got to figure this out. I want to make this work. If they can do it, I can do it. And it's, it's a really good, worldview to have, that you are capable of doing miraculous things. If these books are true, these people were able to do it. Why not you? Why not anyone else? If you can figure out the formula to it, you should be able to put these things to practical use, if it is, actually possible.
Well, yeah. Well, and it's like these books. I mean, we're talking about the Bible, which the very first book ever put to print. It's one of the oldest surviving documents. And what's it talking about? It's talking about human beings calling the power of God to earth. And it's interesting that when biblically, when God does intervene, that it's through an earthly minister, through even Noah building the ark is an acquiescence and a calling forth of the thing that's been prophesied.
Yeah, it's always a conduit, it seems like, of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that it takes. I mean, the Red Sea won't part unless Moses commands it to. And so God is always telling, and throughout the entire New and Old Testament, the command is always on the individual. Mm-hmm. and even Jesus, as Jesus is doing his earthly ministry, and he's going around performing his magic, he gives in some cases he gives a very, very clear instructions on what you need to do, but in every case he turns it back around and says, this is not about me, this is about what you can do.
Right.
And, yeah, no, absolutely. So I saw all that and I was like, okay, how? And those questions are not. I'll tell you what. As I got more, like, I think, actively interested in the questions behind religion, it did start to worry my adopted mother, for sure, because the first family that I had gotten sent into was he had started his own cult. I later found out, I guess, his own religion that was based loosely around Mormonism, but then he also had some elements of Satanism in there, and he'd taken all these different paths, I guess, and just crushed them into one, and used that, I think, more as a validation of whatever sick shit he wanted to do. And so
right.
Whatever, it was part of the psychosis, but my mom starts seeing that I'm getting obsessively interested in it and asking crazy questions about it. How can I do the same thing?
It's like my other kids aren't asking these questions. Like, what's up with this guy here?
Yeah, exactly. And so it became pretty clear specifically in communications, here are the things you do not ask, that you don't talk about, that you don't say. And there were a lot of those interesting, almost like, to me, it seemed like random rules about what you could and couldn't talk about. And a lot of it, it was the shit I was most interested in talking about. It's stuff that I still am talking about to this day.
Right.
So, yeah. But anyway, so there's all this buildup of what happens when you get baptized. And I'm, reading the stories about Jesus coming up out of the water, and it's just amazing. And, people... One interesting thing that happens in the Mormon church, and I'm sure it happens in every religion, is that it's like the congregation kind of does this inter-validation thing of telling these little urban myths about the cool things that happen to them in the temple, or that they're wearing their garments, because Mormons will wear these garment underwear, and that I was wearing these garments and I got in a fire and everything burned except for the garments, and they tell these ghost stories to each other to help enforce the belief, the whole collective system, and
right.
And so I think I expected a little more out of it. That I get baptized and I was like, well, I just got dunked in water and pulled back up. That's all that happened. Now at that same time, unknown to me, my parents are going through some marriage struggles, and we were living just a small town in southern Utah, really, really super, super small town. One street, one gas station. That gas station now is closed. It's been closed forever. It's one of those gas stations on the side of the road that has windows busted out of it and all that, right on the side of the freeway. Yeah, and so we moved from there about an hour up the road and to a bigger city, bigger town. My dad builds a house. He was a construction. He worked construction his whole life. He was a general contractor. Then he started teaching at the school, the local college, construction technology or whatever. So he'd have his students come, and as part of their summer, they built our house.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah,
that works out good.
Yeah, so it's their project. They're getting paid for it, and they're getting credit for it. So and we get a house out of it. So while they're building this house, we all move, and mind you, we got 7 kids, and we all move into this little 2-bedroom condo, because they've got to try to afford something. That they're scraping together. We've got one income. It's not. My mom was pretty much not allowed to work. She was allowed to go to school to become a nurse, but. The feeling I got is that she was definitely not allowed to go get a job and be an independent woman at all. She was supposed to, she got 7 kids.
Homemaker, yeah.
Yeah. And she's my mom's too ambitious for all that. She's too strong-headed of a woman and all that. And so she starts, pretty sure she starts making plans long before I ever saw anything coming, where she starts getting her degree. She starts, looking for jobs. She starts maybe even mentioning, hey, why don't we move to a bigger town where she's got more opportunities? And so we get my dad finishes the house, and pretty much as soon as he finishes the house, he starts up with some college student at the college that he taught at, and he doesn't hide it. He's pretty clear about it. He actually brought his girlfriend to like a rodeo. We're at a rodeo, like just after our house was finished. We're waiting for Dad to move in, and he brings his 19-year-old girlfriend to the rodeo. And sits with the whole family with my mom there.
What the hell?
Oh man, yeah, no, he's just wow, yeah, that's okay.
How did your mom handle that?
I'll tell you what. You asked me that, and I would love to tell you, but I don't know because we didn't talk about that kind of shit.
Right.
She handled it silently, and I heard about it. Like I put the pieces together later, and the other kids were a lot more observant of what's going on than I was. I'm off in my own la la land. At that point, I'll tell you what, la la land is fucking right. I was. I'm 8 years old. We moved to a new town. When we moved, for whatever reason, my dad said he was very, very, very clear about, you do not tell anybody at school where we're going or that we're even moving. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I can't say goodbye to my friends, and he's all, no. Like, say goodbye to them as if it's the weekend and you're going to see him on Monday. But nobody used to know we're moving. No, and I had no clue why. Like, I still don't know to this day. Like, I think it was just like this hardwired secrecy that it was really hardwired into him and into my mom as well. It's like, you don't talk about a lot of shit. And anybody that's paid any attention knows that I'm the opposite. I can't stop talking about shit.
Yeah, I feel you there. It's the same way in my own life, for sure. And it's like, I guess with your dad and, when him wanting to have that secrecy, it's almost kind of like, if you tell them, I know as soon as we move in, come Monday, those missionaries are going to be knocking on our door, wanting to come in, wanting to check out the house, wanting to have dinner with us every night, make sure that, things are going the way they need to in our home, inadvertently, kind of like, undercover, the missionaries coming by. Hey.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll tell you what, there was a lot of that. Friends did not come in the house. It was we'd go outside and play, and part of that it was, I think, is good parenting. Force your kids to go get some sun. But on the other hand, like, kids were never ever in our house ever. Like, those of us that lived there, obviously, but our friends didn't come and play in our room. They didn't play with our toys. They didn't come watch TV with us.
Wow.
Yeah, and so like this. For whatever reason, there was this huge wall of secrecy. And as far as like my experience, there was not like really, really deep, dark shit going on in that family. Like they got the weirdness for sure. And I mean, they're crazy, but no more crazy than I am. But
it definitely wasn't like your first family that you lived with by any means.
well, yeah. And I think that was absolutely a base of comparison where, my mom would kind of flip out about things and start to, you're just throwing threats out there. I'm going to beat your ass till it's black and blue or whatever, right? Now, I would have this thing that would go on in my head when I would hear that, where I go, first reaction is, oh shit. And then the second reaction is, wait a minute, I've been through worse. Like,
right. Like, that's
whatever.
Nothing. Yeah.
yeah. That definitely is a nutty way to kind of to grow up and evaluate those kinds of things. But I don't know. But yeah, so we move into this new house. My parents split. My dad actually takes off with his girlfriend. I guess they spend some time, I guess, getting the divorce moving forward and whatever. And then my dad moves to Japan with his new girlfriend. They get married while he's in Japan. He's gone for, I don't even know, 6 months to a year or something like that. And he goes over there. He's teaching some kind of something or another. And
okay.
But like, I don't. It was really interesting because, once again, dropped into a new town. Parents split up. my mom at that point went into nursing. Boom, she had her degree, everything. She is such a smart woman. I have to tell you, like I look at her. She's been through some shit in her life and her relationships specifically, but I see how she stacks it, and then when shit does fall apart, boom, she's ready. So shit falls apart with her marriage. That's all right. She's got nursing. She just barely got her RN. Boom, goes into fucking nursing and starts just working it hard. Earns a really good income for us. Ends up marrying the guy that's her stepdad. And he was, as far as I was concerned, he was a good guy. Their relationship didn't work out, but that's not really, relationships don't work out with a lot of people. But yeah, right. So. But she had everything set up, ready to go. She jumped when it was time to jump, and took care of business. And we had the house. She made sure she had a house built for her, and that she had an ability to go live and make a living, create a career.
She had that woman's intuition like crazy, didn't she?
Oh yes, something. Yeah, for sure. So at that point, I'm kind of spending a lot of time alone. We had, when my mom's always at work. I say that's how it felt. It felt like my mom was always at work. I'm sure she worked just 8 hours or whatever. She worked, and I'd see her, later on in the evening. She'd make dinner and whatever. When she was doing school, I'll tell you what. Right after my parents split, and right before, she was still doing school, wrapping up school, and working. And at that point, she was hardly ever home. And so, like, my older sister basically raised me for a few years. Like, she would go to my in 6th grade, she would go to all my class parent-teacher conferences.
Right.
Yeah. And 5th grade, she came to my 5th grade graduation, my elementary school graduation. And she got married when she was 17 or something like that. She got married.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My sister that's younger than her at 16 split and moved to New Jersey, and went and took a nanny job out there. Just said she was 18 and just started living as an 18-year-old, as an adult, and bouncing around New Jersey. And she's just
some Mormon guys.
What's that? These
were all Mormon guys, or did they married or no? Okay.
Yeah, no. One of them, no, because my oldest sister, she married a guy that, he grew up in the fundamentalist Mormon with the polygamous. Yeah, which that's the kind of just a few miles up the road that way is their whole compound and whatnot, and so he had escaped. He escaped. He'd got. What happens is when you have a polygamous community, you've got a small amount of men that are all competing for all of the women, because it's an offset type of thing. And so if you have sons, those sons are competition, and so they get kicked out. By the time you start jerking off, you're out of the house.
Right. No young studs around here, buddy.
Right. No, exactly. So it's actually what in the area we call them lost boys, because they're just they do go live they go live down in the valley, and they get jobs and they bust ass. They are working motherfuckers. And so I've always worked construction and cabinetry and whatever with a lot of polygamous kids, lost boys and whatnot. But he was one of those, and so she married him. My other sister moves out to Jersey just on her own. Just I think my mom drove her out there, and just drove her out, dropped her off. She had seen an ad in the paper for a fucking nanny. So she calls it. She's like, I'm 18. I've got a bunch of younger brothers and sisters. I've raised them all. We're a big Mormon family. I know how to raise kids. And so they're like, oh, yeah, come on out. And hire her on. No paperwork, no background check, none of that. And at 16, that's nutty to me. At 16, my parents, were okay with that. That's, my daughter's 13, and I don't think 3 more years is going to give her enough growing up for me to be okay with her moving to somewhere on the East Coast. Wow.
It's scary, isn't it?
Oh, wow, yeah. But how overwhelming that's got to be to be the parent of 7 kids, your husband goes and leaves you for, a 20-year-old or whatever. One daughter gets pregnant and married. Wow, that's got to be like a lot. So at that point, it's like, yeah, leave. If you want to leave, fucking go.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh my gosh, man. I mean, I know it's got to be hard, thinking about the reality of it, but at the same time, it's a little bit of relief involved, I'm sure. Like, that's one. I've raised that one. Here's another one. I'm getting close. I'm getting close to actually being able to live again, in many senses, because kids can really they consume your life. I mean, it's wonderful, like you said. I mean, it's the best thing ever, but it's really easy to kind of lose yourself in trying to raise them the right way and not to put like every ounce of your energy into them, and like a lot of mothers especially will tend to do that, and they'll totally forget about the relationship that they have with their husband, and you just kind of become mommy and daddy, and you're focusing on your kids so much that you lose sight of everything else. And I'm sure for your mother it was kind of like a little bit of breathing room finally, but still bittersweet and hard to let them go. But it's got to be a little bit of relief too at the same time.
Oh yeah, no, I'll tell you what, and I know that there is the obvious like impact, especially with multiple children on a relationship, for sure. Even just with one child, like my marriage didn't last through. I don't think that's not because we had a child, but good God, that made it a whole lot harder. On one hand, it gives you a whole lot more reason to try to make it work, and that's the only reason I was in it as long as I was. But geez, but there's also you lose yourself. You
do. It's like you get frozen in time almost. It's like, say you have a kid when you're 24, and you put everything into it, and time is just slowly rolling. What's really rolling by very fast at a very fast rate. And, when you kind of like snap out of it 10 years later, you're 34 and you're like, what the hell happened? Like, I just did like this crazy quantum leap, 10 years ahead, and I've got a 10-year-old daughter or son or what have you. And I still feel like I'm 24. Like I feel like I just went to sleep at 24 and woke up at 34 and I don't even know what the hell happened. It's crazy like that. I've experienced that in my own life, and it's really tough because, you do kind of tend to like, it's just very easy, because you worry about how other people are going to judge you and look at you as far as like your parenting style, and are you a good enough father, and are you spending enough time with them? Are you sacrificing yourself enough for your children and all of that? And like because of all the stress that society puts on us to be that and to fit in that mold, like for me, I mean, I really did feel like, at 28, I went to sleep, and at 38, I woke up, and I'm just like, whoa, and it's like, I've got a lot of catching up to do. I've got to make up for all this lost time and lost ground. And, it's like, I feel like I'm finally now discovering who I am. And if I could have kept more of a balance, maybe I could have done both and been successful at both. But it's so easy just to lose yourself in raising children. And, it's awesome that it sounds like your mother was able to keep a balance there and work on her career, focus on that, give you what you all need. But it sounds like too that she, unfortunately couldn't be there a lot, but I know she was definitely doing it for you all. But it sounded like it worked out good for her in the end too, for herself personally in her own life.
Yeah. I mean, well, everybody just walks their own path, and that's, yeah, no, I'll tell you what, I'm definitely grateful that she was smart enough to make preparations, and that she was capable enough to enact them. I mean, because she didn't just jump in and she wasn't just wiping people's asses for a living for the rest of her life. Like she jumps in. I mean, she did her share of that. She came home covered in vomit and all kinds of weird shit. But it was clear that not only was she working towards working for us, not only was she, paying the bills and whatnot, but like more important than that, I think, was that she was fulfilling her dreams. Like she wanted to be a nurse. She always wanted to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going, with everything against her, she did it. And then when she got into it, she flew with it because that's what she wanted to do. And so and for me, that's an awesome example of not just surviving,
Yeah. And settling.
Yeah. There were very few. I had very few heart-to-heart conversations with either of my parents. Like I said, it was just secrecy and not a whole lot of talking about anything. But especially later on, when I was like 16-ish, my mom, one of the things she would tell me a few times that she would kind of trickle these things to me. As far as the first off, where your mind's at, if where you're focusing on is what's going on. So I'd have a slip and fall or whatever. She'd go, well, what were you paying attention to? They think about where your mind's at. Think about what you're focusing. And that annoyed the shit out of me. And especially when because she would get metaphysical with it. She'd get,
okay.
thinking about that. And she would, to this day, she would not ever say that that's what her intention was. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm projecting and reading into it. But she would drop a lot of little lines like that. That what you focus on is what you get.
The spirit's working through her as a vessel, even at a young age for you to deliver those messages,
Oh, right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, one of the things she would absolutely consistently kind of trickle to me was that she goes, you've been through some stuff, but you're not just a survivor. There's more than surviving. You're a thriver. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So even though we weren't allowed, or I didn't feel like I was allowed to talk about any of the bad shit, there was still an acknowledgement there was bad shit, and you're going to get there, but no tools of here's how you're going to do that or anything. That would have been the cool extra step. But we can all look in hindsight and make those judgments. But yeah, So she does her thing with that. I'm spending a lot of time at this point kind of on my own. We had this little desert strip between our house and the elementary school I'd go to. And it was being torn up. They were starting to develop it and whatnot. So there's the tractor. Tractors just sitting in the weeds and different piles of stuff. And there's this pile of branches and whatnot that had formed a little cave inside of it. And nobody else seemed to know about this. And I'd pass it every day as I'm walking to and from school. And so I'd start going after school and going and hiding in there and just watching people walk by and nobody would even see me, nobody would even know. And I would just actually a lot of my childhood, thinking about it, I spent a lot of time doing stuff like that, hiding away and going inside my imagination, imagining that I'm sitting inside a spaceship and making it real to me, or just letting myself completely go into my imagination. And
so many kids don't do that nowadays, and it blows my mind, of what's going to happen with them because, they're just so absorbed in, video games and other things. And I mean, you can use your imagination with that too, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing like building a fort or, stealing away into your own mind and creating this other world, all around you that it becomes, very real. And it becomes kind of like this escape and this retreat that you can kind of, go to anytime that you need to and leave the craziness of this world behind you, but for a few hours or something.
I'll tell you what, to this day, my most amazing experiences aren't occurring in the physical world, I mean, and whether that's in the astral plane or with spirits or I get together every now and again and go out in the desert and I'll build a bar with a bunch of friends. We built this post-apocalyptic bar, wear whatever we want to wear. We do whatever drugs we want to do. We have sex and have a good time. And it's a crazy party. And it's a crazy experience, but it's all a facade. It's all make-believe. And so it's a bunch of adults that are out in the desert playing make-believe. And
right. That's awesome.
And when what you realize is that is more real than this default world that we're still doing make-believe here. We're still doing make-believe. Every time I put on a suit and have to go, I try not to wear ties. The only time I wear a tie is if I have to stand in front of a judge. But yeah, paying taxes and waving at the neighbors, and it's all a facade. It's all a facade. But we
Absolutely.
just think this is real. And so you can take the same game and apply it to whatever you want to make real. If you do that with things that are of a magical nature, it tends to manifest things. That was one of the things I got when I was a kid pretty clearly. Like, what you're doing with your mind does absolutely affect what's going on in the outside world. How people treat you, but also just the alignment of coincidence. And just recognize that if I thought about things in a certain way, and thought about things and then felt something in a certain way, I could start to push reality.
It sends out that energetic signature that everybody else kind of picks up on and responds favorably to most of the time.
A lot of times, well, and even, man, I mean, even influencing not only other people to respond differently. Because that is one aspect of it, but then of just like circumstance working out in the way that you really, really hoped it would, but it didn't look like it was going to, but by focusing in a certain way. And I was just playing with this. I didn't know that it was, honestly, I didn't know that it was a real thing. I thought it was just another head trip I was doing. And what I found out, is as I've immersed myself in the world of the occult, is that a lot of the things that I had assumed were just make-believe are actually occurring. That if you can zip across a room, read something in a book, and come back and report on it, that at some point you've got to determine that that's a real experience. But we are told it's massively discouraged in our society to even consider that that's a possibility, especially as a child. Like, for some reason, that's especially with children. Oh, no, don't be stupid. Come back.
You're too old for that stuff. That's fairy tales and bull crap. You're 6 or you're 7 now. You got to leave that behind. It's time for the real world. And it's like, well, how real is that actually?
Yeah. No, exactly. So, but yeah. So let's see. I spent a lot of time alone. We move out to, my mom ends up getting remarried, like I said, to who became my stepdad. He was a cool guy. He tried to do the father thing a lot better than my dad did, or a lot more. He put specifically with me. I think at that point I had 2 sisters that had left the house. My brother, after my dad got back from Japan, my brother moved in with him. Tension was just too much between he and my mom, and so really it was myself and my 2 sisters and my baby brother. And so she marries this guy. I'm pretty sure my mom was kind of pushing him, to he'd take me to basketball games and boxing matches and little fun stuff going on around town that we could sit on a bench together and have a father-son experience. And this is, and I had never had that. I had never had one-on-one time with a parent,
Mm-hmm.
That many kids. So that was like a special, relationship was created between he and I, for sure.
So you were open to that, and you really didn't resist it or anything. You were open to the idea of that. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I felt like I had an option to resist much anything, as a kid.
Right.
And that is, I'll tell you what, that is one of the huge differences that, I could say, like, our society and the next generation is having, but it's something that I've intentionally done with my daughter is given her options with a lot of things, do you want this or this? Or here's, for her chores. She has chores she has to do, absolutely. It's a list of chores, and as long as all of them get done every week, she gets some money thrown her way. If they don't, there's a punishment. But it doesn't matter what day she does what chore. people do better with options. And
Right.
having felt like I didn't have any, most of my childhood or whatever, I'm sure, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say what way is healthier. I guess it's probably a middle ground type of thing, because I know I go way on the other side of the spectrum as my parents.
Same here.
They have way too much control, and I'm like, do whatever you want, kid, as long as you're not burning the house down, you're good.